how's it going, man?
It's going, just hanging in there, doing what I can,
All right. So work hasn't stopped for you, right?
It has slowed down quite a bit. I work retail on the side of doing this. So, with it being an essential business, they do keep us open, but they have definitely seen a decline, and there's people that are getting cut, hours are dropping and stuff. So I mean, it hasn't been great, but I'm still very lucky to still have a job,
Well, yeah, I think that's good. I mean, the important thing now is that, of course, obviously stay healthy, and then obviously having a job still does help a lot, because I think a lot of people have lost theirs already, and I mean, just thankful to not be in that position. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Well, just out of curiosity, like, what mic are you using? Because it is actually a bit soft on my end. I mean, I can hear you, but sometimes when there's like a slight lag, you tend to go. I mean, your voice tends to go a bit softer. So maybe you could just pull the mic a bit closer, or.
It's actually just from my phone, as if I was talking to you on speakerphone. So.
Okay. But you can hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, let's all right, let's get to know you a bit better then. Cool. All right, so for a start, can you just share what inspired you to start picking up sticks, and who were your main influences along the way?
Well, growing up, I was actually, and I still am to this day, a pretty big Kiss fan. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be Ace Frehley so bad. Like, I wanted to be a guitar player, but I knew that I wasn't gonna get good at it unless I really stuck it out. And any attempts that I had made on playing guitar when I was young, it just it was too much for me to learn. And with playing drums, I was like, well, this is basically me just hitting a bunch of things. At least that's what I thought at the time. So, but I would say definitely like Peter Criss or Eric Carr from Kiss. Both of their respective careers, they huge influences on me. A lot of classic rock drummers, like what they consider to be classic rock now. Guys like them. Neil Peart was a huge influence on me as well. Rest in peace. And then as far as when I got older, into my teenage years, it was definitely changed. I was more about Joey Jordison and Joey Jordison, and I was a big Korn fan too. So David Silveria was actually influence when I was in my new metal phase. Let me actually see if I can. Oh, there we go.
Is that from your phone?
No.
Is that from your phone?
Light. Nope. The light thing, I guess it turned off after a minute.
Okay. All right. Yeah, David Silveria is cool, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the drummers that people usually, I mean, when they start getting into metal, I think for some reason a lot of people start with Korn, and then therefore David Silveria, and then because he plays the single pedal only, so his style of drumming seems more achievable compared to, you know, I mean, at least that's what beginners think. It seems more achievable compared to drummers like Joey Jordison.
He I mean, he wasn't always a single pedal guy. It was just like a staple record for me is Life is Peachy. And I know a lot of people will say like, oh, it's not, you know, it's got to be either self-titled or it's got to be oh my God, Follow the Leader. But for me, like Life is Peachy was a staple record for me, and I feel like he was really creative on that record, more so than any other. And you can hear it in the songs. Like he was just doing stuff that you were like, that's weird, that makes sense, but hey, go for it. But yeah, they were definitely, you know, at that time they were big influences of mine. When I got more into like the heavier stuff, Inferno from Behemoth, he's like one of my all-time favorites. Pete Sandoval from Morbid Angel was also one of my favorites. I don't know. I mean, I take nowadays, when it comes to the music that I listen to now or the music that I play, I take influence from everyone that I see. They influence me to grow as a musician. I mean, I see people that I've toured with, and just like, oh my God, how the hell are they playing like that? You know. It's always cool to see. It's always influential on me to see them.
Okay.
So.
And does that then explain, like, you know, obviously you're kind of known for playing metal, but then but you're also actually able to play other styles. So is that the reason why you're able to play different styles? I mean, kind of like getting inspiration from different drummers, like, you know, they may not be from heavy metal alone, could be from other genres. Is that the reason why you're actually able to play so many different styles, or?
It's mostly that. At the same time as well, you know, we play a style of music that, you know, is not, you don't make a lot of money off of that. Unless you're very big in the business. And I mean, not that that's the important thing, but it's always good to have another skill set in different genres of music so you can, you know, sell yourself a little bit more, you know. But I mean, I watch people like Tony Royster Jr. and Eric Moore, I believe. And I mean, I watch these guys and their gospel chops and all this stuff, and I'm just like, I want to learn that, you know. It's so good. It's so good, and they're doing all of that with just one pick pedal mostly.
Yeah, that's the difficult part, actually. You don't get to cheat your way through. Right, I mean, with a single pedal, like, because there are so many things you can do with the double, you know, to kind of cheat.
Yeah, I found ways to play certain types of fills that kind of give off that gospel chop feel, but I'm also using 2 kicks, so I mean, I am cheating in a way. It sounds cool, and I mean, that's all that matters, you know. As long as it sounds cool and people think that that's cool, then hey, it's all right with me, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no right or wrong. I mean, ultimately, it's also the goal. I mean, the outcome that matters, you know. I mean, if you force yourself to do it on single pedal, and it's not you and it's not something you do every day, then, you know, the final outcome may not sound as like what you want it to be. So I mean, if you can do it with 2 kicks, why not? You know, you don't have to try to be like another person anyway. You know, if you get what I mean.
You want to be, you don't want to be like everyone else. You can take influence from other people and put your own details and, you know, your own spin on certain things, but It's a matter of being yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So then was heavy metal always your choice? And then because obviously you explained that you kind of picked up different styles along the way, but then is that solely just to kind of expand your library, or you actually thought about, going to different genres, or you knew from the start that heavy metal was like, going to be the main one and the others are just gonna be like, side dishes, if you get what I mean.
Metal is and always will be my first love as far as music goes. When I was a kid and I would listen to the same classic rock songs on the radio growing up, I knew how to play songs like that. It wasn't hard to do. So, going into just playing standard rock stuff was not hard. But, when it comes to, like I said before, putting your own spin on it for other genres that you add to your skill set, you kind of have to follow that as best as you can. You have to pocket, and I think I've heard quite a few people say this, and I agree with them. It's so easy in a sense to play fast and crazy and stuff like that. It's actually harder to stay in pocket playing something simple for a decent period of time. When you have to follow a click and you're just playing standard rock beat, and you have to keep that consistent, mess that up. That it feels a little bit, for some strange reason, it feels a little bit harder, And I've heard that, quite a bit from a lot of people, and I agree. I agree.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, it's like playing with a double time metronome and then cutting it into half, and then you just even if you have to just go like dum cha dum cha at a very slow tempo, that's extremely difficult to do compared to going on a 16 beat double bass run, because that you can kind of keep that consistent.
You get so used to that. That's just it's just in your brain. So then when you have to go back and dumb everything down, you're just like, whoa. It feels weird. Definitely.
Yeah, it does. And then you're like, what am I supposed to do with all this empty space? Am I supposed to hit something, or, and then your body just, refuses to just slow down, after you get used to filling in every single beat, of every bar.
Yeah. I mean, with my new band, Haunt Me Forever, it's very like indie rock sound. Like we take influence from bands like Teenage Wrist and Microwave and Movements and maybe a bit of balance and composure type stuff. And when I go and I play this stuff with them, just practicing it, it's just like, I'm keeping that consistent rock beat throughout, and I'm just like, what can I add? Anything else? Can I make? I can't, because I have to keep it a certain.
Can I add like a bell? Can I add like a splash in between? I bet you're like itching to do that all the time.
It's great. Like I'll be practicing with them. The main guitar player in that band, who wrote most of the music starting out, I've known this kid since like middle school. So he knows exactly what I've been doing, and he knows the type of person I am, because we were both, crazy metal kids when we were younger. So every time, like we practice something, we'll be joking around about it, and I'll just start playing like super fast, like double bass runs during the song, and he'll just look at me with stop. Great. We find it absolutely hilarious.
Oh, I'm sure, because it's kind of like you guys kind of know that you have to, in some ways, force yourself to, to tame yourself a little bit when it comes to playing what you guys have to play for this band. And yeah, I think that's what kind of makes it hilarious, Yeah, I do get what you mean. It is so true that it is hard. It is actually much harder to play slow than uh, because when you play slow, everything's just kind of naked, and every detail is heard. How long your hit sustains and things like that. So all that gets amplified and noticed. So it is actually much harder to play slow than fast. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, yeah. So then you were talking about, learning different styles to kind of widen your portfolio. So, and I believe many people are in the same situation as you are, in a sense that they have to kind of juggle between being a musician and also, work commitments. So how do you deal with that, especially when you have to tour with a band? And I'm sure that's something very difficult to do, because what I noticed before in the previous interviews was that, um, the previous artist did mention that, sometimes it is so hard to convince the employers to keep that slot for them, when they come back after tour, and it's a constant struggle, if you get what I mean.
I mean, I've struggled with finding work after coming home from tour. Um, ever since it started. Honestly, the first tour I did, I took an unemployment check and just used that to fund my needs while I was out for a month. So, and then as time went on, after that first tour, I was kind of like taking a bit of a break, trying to figure out how I was going to make it work. And I actually wasn't living here in Connecticut where I'm at now. I was living in Kentucky, and I was working at a call center, and I was making decent money, and I got to buy a new car, and just little things that try to make it worthwhile. But that you want to be on that stage, and that you want to be playing in front of all these people who come out there just to see you, and you make their day and their night by doing that, and it makes your night, and that's all I ever want. So I was in the process of going back home to Connecticut here, and I got a message from Adam Warren from Oceano, and he was just like, we need somebody to fill in. Are you interested? And I had met them prior to at a festival that we were playing together with my old band that I did before.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, absolutely, I'll take it. And that was Summer Slaughter 2017. I came back home. I left for tour maybe a week later. We didn't even move into our house yet, and I just left straight for tour. So, and I was out for a month, and I came home, and it was just like the greatest, like one of the greatest times of my life, right then and there. So, with that being said, you come home and you struggle to find work because nobody will hire you if you're honest about, saying like, hey, I'm a touring musician, like I'm going to be gone. A lot. It's just like they cut you off right there. And as time went on, the place I work at now, I mean, it's a pet store, it's just a pet store. But the way that they work is, with their company policy is that if you go away, and as long as you work a shift within 6 weeks, I think that was the policy, you're fine. They won't fire you if you're not up to the.
Okay,
So I
that
got
helps.
really yes, and I got very lucky with that. Especially now with everything that's going on. with this coronavirus stuff, you know, having a job.
Mm-hmm.
But for any touring musician, it could be so hard. It could be so hard to find something else when you have downtime.
Yeah.
And you know, people come home and they could be depressed because they just want to. They don't want to. They don't want to stop. You know, they want to come home maybe for a little bit. They'll say that they want to come home. They'll come home and they'll be like, "I wish I was back out again," because I'm guilty of doing it all the time. But you know, it's really hard. I've seen so many people, you know, with what's going on right now. I've seen so many people that have lost out on work, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really sad. It's really sad to see that this is happening and that we are currently in the state that we are. You know,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, one of Oceano's former tour managers, this guy Frank
Mm-hmm.
Finelli, he actually organized a GoFundMe for road crew and you know just people that work behind the scenes that
Mm-hmm.
aren't able to you know go out and make their money. And I think that is the most amazing thing. I think that
Mm-hmm.
is so good for this community of people. Seeing stuff
Yeah.
like that, it lights a little bit of a fire of hope, you know. And this
Yeah.
time, well, this will all blow over. It will,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Um,
sure. I'm sure.
what will never stop, at least I don't think so, is working on top of being a touring musician. I don't think that that's ever going to change. I don't think that, you know, if you get lucky and you find a job that lets you leave, great. Hold on to it for dear life if you can. Otherwise, you know, you have to you have to really buckle down. You have to survive. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
what you can. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy to think, but it's the truth. And I know a lot of people could definitely agree with me on it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but I think that's one thing. But I mean, if there's any good that's going to come out from, the current situation is, because of the fact that many people are kind of in the similar situation where they don't have their jobs anymore, or are getting huge pay cuts, etc. But I think if there's any good that's going to come out from this is that the world's going to change and head towards a direction where people don't actually require people to be in the office anymore. So because who knows how long this will last, and then eventually bigger businesses will have to kind of find solutions when they don't have this, when they can't have the staff there physically. So I think we're starting to see a bit of a change already after this whole thing started. So I do kind of think this, I mean, this is kind of painful now, but I think in the next couple of months, the next couple of years, I think it'll eventually get better, where there could be a scenario where musicians are actually allowed to work from home, and then even on tour, even if it's a job that just requires like, a couple of hours a day, so in between tours, I mean, like during tours, that's actually possible. I mean, I would think just to work in a couple of hours in between, off online, and
People
just
do
off.
some people do have those opportunities. They,
Yeah.
where they could actually just work on their laptops while they're out on the road. Some people do can they do have those opportunities. It's just very hard to come by. I haven't seen anything like that myself,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it all depends on how hard you look, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely hard to come by, but we've also seen some mm, musicians, say for example, Ola England. There's Misha and the rest from Periphery. You know, Matt Halpin, Nolly Get Good. They've came up with different businesses that had to do with their music, like creating plugins, or in Ola England's case, he's producing guitars. And I think it's due to the fact that they realize that just making music alone may make it difficult to put bread and butter on the table. And I mean, just music alone is very hard to guarantee that. So I think they see that, and I hope to be able to speak to Ola England, because it's that part of his brain that I want to pick, because I think that will be very useful for musicians, because he realized many years ago that just making music alone will actually kill musicians, if you get what I mean, because it's so hard. Like you said, you come back from tour, you lose your job, or you lose your job even before you go on tour. And that's the thing that a lot of fans don't see. And as I was telling Lena, when I was chatting with her, it's like people often see the fancy parts, all the fame, getting on stage, all the cheers you're getting, throwing picks, throwing drumsticks, stuff like that. But then behind the scenes, it's actually such a big struggle that people don't see. And all they think musicians do is, sit in the studio and produce more music. But that in reality isn't the case at all, unless you're really big, like you said, like bands like Dream Theater, for example. They literally spend 24/7 doing music, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, let's hope something good comes out of this whole situation, because, obviously people are getting a bit more creative when it comes to working from home.
Oh, yeah. As far as Lena goes, I mean, she is a very hard worker.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you have to do stuff like that. You have to do things to keep yourself busy, especially in the times that we're in. And she's literally the hardest worker I know.
Mhm.
And it's definitely it definitely serves as good motivation for you to do something for yourself. And I think a lot of people catch on to that too. And I know there's plenty of other people who are doing the same thing too.
Mhm.
And we need more people like that.
Mhm.
We need people that can help influence more people to um,
Make the best out of the situation.
that's,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
honestly,
That's true, because I think difficult times like that, especially music. I mean, obviously everyone's suffering, and then obviously musicians will take the hit harder than most other people, because it was already hard before when things were good, and things are terrible now. You're not able to go on tour, you can't sell your merch. Musicians are literally just forced to stay home, and in a lot of cases jobless as well. So I think this is a time where I think it's a bit sad to say, but I think a lot of musicians will kind of die out due to this. But then,
they
um,
can very easily can die out from it,
yeah,
and it sucks. It really does. I refuse to give up on it, and I know there's so many people that feel the same. And I like to think that once this is all over and everything, yeah, it's not ever going to be the same, but I think that in the type of community that we are, as far as metal goes, we could be one of the cattiest communities where people are always constantly trying to one up one another.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that with this thing going on and as it comes and goes, that it brings more people together. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people need to have a bit of a reality check on being humble and come together as the community that we care so much about, that we claim to care so much about. You know, I think that, you know, it'll make or break some people in that sense.
Yeah.
I'm confident that, you know, when it does blow over and things start getting back on track, I think we're going to see some of, you know, we probably see some of the wildest shows that we will ever see. It'll be like as if it's the, you know, for certain bands, the mid 2000s all over again, or whatever time frame that they came out of where things were just crazy. You know, it could be like that again. It
Yeah.
could be,
If not
you know,
better, actually.
it could very well be. I'm not saying that it will, but if it does, you know, that would be absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think everyone would agree with that. And well, I think we just need to keep our heads and chins up and hope that, and I think continue to believe that a greater good will come out of this. It is a difficult situation, but in the long run, this might actually, be the deal breaker for, a lot of musicians. It may actually, how do you say? There might be a huge change that completely transforms the way musicians operate, and those struggles that were there before may be solved, or at least half of them may be solved. Like we said, people are getting more creative with working from home solutions and things like that. So that will actually really help musicians, because you don't actually have to stop working while you're on tour and things like that. So despite the sad thing that's going on now, I do firmly kind of believe that there will be greater good. So, and then that's when determination from musicians like you plays an important role to encourage others, because it's not easy. I mean, everyone's going through a difficult time, but we can kind of agree that musicians are having it kind of like the I mean, apart from doctors and nurse, you guys are kind of like getting the worst package of the deal here. Um,
We're definitely, I'm not going to say that we're the worst, but we're definitely feeling an impact.
yeah. So, but I mean, definitely, things will get better over time. I mean, with all these lockdowns, musicians and even labels are getting a bit more creative in terms of, like, online campaigns, social media campaigns. A lot of people are organizing like workshops online for free, just to get extra exposure and publicity. So I think this is kind of like the best time to force you to think out of the box, rather than the typical record, tour, and then new record, and then tour again kind of thing. So there are more things that people are doing now to fill in the gaps. I mean, when it comes to musicians, so you see like Lena doing so many different things, even her and Melissa Cross doing a workshop, which is free, which is very rare. I mean, that wouldn't have happened if everything was good, if you get what I mean. So that only kind of happened because everyone's just stuck at home. So people are, in fact, getting very creative with what they can do from home. And that's really gonna be a game changer for everyone, not just musicians.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So okay, well, let's talk about something a bit more, like something a bit happier, I guess. Like, we don't want people to get depressed from listening to us talk about this situation. Well, um, another thing I find very interesting about your journey, I think a lot of people will be how you progress through the bands into, you know, being with Oceano, where you are kind of like a full-on touring musician. So kind of summarize what your journey was like, starting from your first band to record in studios, and then how did your first go and eventually evolve into you being a recording artist and also a touring one?
Okay, I'm gonna try to answer that as best as I can because you were kind of cutting out for a little bit, so it was very choppy. But I mean, starting from the beginning, I played in a lot of local bands, mainly with, as I had mentioned earlier, my guitar player in Haunt Me Forever. We've known each other for so long that, I mean, we used to play talent shows in middle school together. Like that's how far we go back. And I tried finding people to play in bands with when I was living down south, but I wasn't driving, and I didn't have a job, so obviously I didn't have a car, and I didn't get to like get out there and find anyone. You know what I mean? There was just, I could have made it work. I never, for some strange reason, I never found whatever it was that I was looking for out there. And I came back for the first time, and I joined his Clark, my guitar player in Haunt. I joined his band. We were called Exalted Corruption. It was a horrible name. But we had some seriously kick-ass music. I mean, it was like Nile with breakdowns. We were very heavily influenced on the whole Egyptian thing. So I think that lasted, maybe, for me at least, I think that only lasted a couple of years. We played some pretty decent shows in that time. We won a Battle of the Bands to play with one of Osiris back when the Discovery had just come out. So they were on tour. It was them, Carnifex, Veil of Maya, Structures, and Betraying the Martyrs, I believe. So I think it was those five. And every one of those bands, aside from Structures, I would go on to, well, actually Structures and Veil. All those other bands I'd go on to tour with later, and I would tell them that story about, how we played that show and just going from right there to where I am now. And they were just like, that's so crazy, that's awesome. It's so good to be able to talk with them about it, But yeah, that lasted maybe a couple years. It started falling apart. So I looked downward to another band from New York called Towers. That lasted maybe 3 to 4 years. Played some pretty great shows with them as well. We were really heavy. I was really into it. And we had some really good music too. That started kind of like dwindling over time. People started kind of growing up a little. Other people went to other bands, and so I did the same. I went on to another band, which was Dealey Plaza. So now I'm going from Connecticut to New York to Florida. I'm flying to Florida, as much as I possibly can to be with this band. And that was the band that I did my first tour with. It was the Death Take Me Home tour with King Conquer, Adalia, Enterprise Earth's first tour, so that was kind of a big deal. People waiting to see them for a while. And here comes the Practise. Let's be honest, that they dropped, if I remember correctly. They didn't get into the country or something with visa issues, which a lot of bands are having plenty of problems trying to get in. But all throughout that time, you know, I never did a lot of recording. I did a session on an EP for a few friends of mine in the midst of being with Towers. Was very progressive, and it's kind of like Within the Ruins meets BT Bam kind of stuff. So it was very intricate and very complex, and it was definitely cool to be able to just play whatever I felt like, and it just worked. You know what I mean? I tracked an EP with Towers that was really like my first. I think it was before that session work that I did, but that was really like my first full-blown experience in a studio, tracking a full 7-song EP. And it was great. I mean, it was just a great feeling to have something that had my name on it. You know what I mean? After that, with Dealey, I didn't actually track anything with them.
You're just playing.
We just wrote drums and programmed them. And that was pretty much it. You know, I mean, I had my name on credits for it, but you know, I really didn't have a huge part. But they got me. They picked me because I could play this stuff, and this was all, you know, BPM blast beats, which people
I saw.
they were like, what the hell is going on here? Like, you know, I mean, it wasn't new, but if you saw someone that could play stuff like that, it was something to watch. And that's why they picked me up. They needed I could actually play that material. After that, kind of went our own ways. People grew up, started adulting, and it seems to be the norm, you know, for a lot of people. We're actually back together now. Luckily, I think it's great. They needed to be. They have a whole new lineup, and it's really cool to see them playing again. And their vocalist Brian, he's like a brother to me. He's literally like family to me. So it's just great to see him doing what he loves again, you know, and having the time to be able to do it. After that, I was in Kentucky at the time, and that's when I started working with Shadow of Intent. And with Shadow, like that was everything that I wanted with music. We had everything that I loved, because I was a huge black metal fan. So like we had influence of that, death metal, core. We had everything that I loved. And so I helped Chris, the guitar player. I helped him write drums on Primordial. It was the first album. And that's when I really joined after that. We shot a couple music videos with former people, I mean, including myself. I would later exit the band, but you know, some former players that were on that, you know, in those videos. And then after that, Reclaimer was written, and that to me helped stretch me as a drummer. And we started playing live after that. We played our debut show here in Connecticut, and it sold out. And it was such a crazy first experience for us. Like, it felt like what it was supposed to feel like when, you know, the guys that you looked up to, when you see them about to go on stage and play in front of a bunch of people, you had that feeling in that room. And that will always be one of my favorite shows that I've ever played. Period. But meanwhile, in the process, I had gotten picked up by Oceano, just as filling in, and doing Summer Slaughter. After Summer Slaughter, we went to Europe with our Artist Murder after the burial, and Justice for the Damned, which that was my experience in Europe. That was without a doubt my favorite tour ever. That will always be my favorite tour. It was so much fun. So much fun. And then after that, we did one tour where I was playing with Oceano, and Shadow of Intent was on the tour as well, and nobody would allow me to do double duty, so I had to play with Oceano. Anthony, who was playing drums for them later, they got him to fill in for me, and so that was definitely a first, you know, being on the same tour with two bands and getting to play with them. So after that, I just keep going on and on.
That's cool.
I did one Shadow that was Black Dahlia Murder, White Chapel, Flesh God Apocalypse, Aversion's Crown, and Us.
Oh yeah,
and that was the most stacked, like the most stacked lineup that I would ever play, I think. And great, you know, it was a great tour. You know, we had our moments, but we had fun, you know, and all in the process. But after that, you know, after that, I left, and I continued on. I couldn't handle more than one. At least that's how I felt at the time. I definitely couldn't handle it. And so I stuck it out with Oceano. And as of now, we had new material written, mostly. But we're just kind of waiting in the wings to get that out there. People have been asking about it, and we just kind of give them like, who knows? We just, I mean, it's fun to mess with people like that. We joke around a lot, so it certainly is funny when they're just like, oh no, don't tell me that nothing's gonna happen. Like, we didn't say that. We just gave you this, you know.
Maybe yes, so, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no kind of approach.
We're just being a little.
But it does say a lot, though. Sorry?
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying it does say a lot because I think that may be very inspiring to a lot of people because it's a long journey. I think it was almost 10 years ago, or at least 10 years ago, since you were with Towers, and then it does actually take time and perseverance to actually be out there. Obviously, like you said, those struggles that we were talking about when it comes to playing tours and shows and then keeping a job. So I think it's actually thanks to that perseverance and determination you had to go through band by band, show by show. I'm not saying you didn't enjoy the bands you played with, but obviously,
I mean, I enjoyed every time, every second of it, and even with what's going on now, like I'm not going to enjoy it any less. You
Yeah.
know, it's you know, I still love it. We have every musician has their day where they just feel like, why am I still doing this?
Mm,
Whether they want to admit it or not, they do.
mm,
And we've all been in that spot.
yeah.
But at the same time, you know, this is what we love to do. We love to play in front of people, and we let those people leave that night with a smile on their face that they got to see that,
Mm,
you know. And that makes it worthwhile to me. That's always made it worthwhile to me. You know, having money is cool. That's great, especially if you can make money off of doing what you love.
mm,
But it's not everything. It
yeah.
never has
Yeah.
been. I think,
Absolutely.
you know, there is definitely some you know, people out there that maybe need to kind of take a step back and really think about that. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, well, it is true. Well, money isn't everything. I mean, if not, then I mean, and it's not something that you're just saying for fun because you've actually walked the journey. I mean, if you're a musician that started like 5 months ago and then said that then people may find it hard to believe. But then the fact that you started your journey like at least 10 years ago, kind of makes a statement to prove that you are actually walking that talk there. Um, and and the point I was trying to make earlier on was to I mean to be a proper musician. I think your journey kind of tells people that the trick or the main tip is to actually just be out there,
Yeah.
be get much exposure as you can, because you don't exactly know who's going to turn up at your show, who's going to notice you, who's going to pick up what you can do, and who's going to see that potential there. And the only way to find out is to actually get your ass out there.
You have to get out there and do it. You have to work. You can't just expect it to fall
Yeah.
in your lap. It's just with everything in life.
Yeah.
You can't live your life like that.
Yeah.
You live your life like that with those expectations, it's almost as if you're destined to fail.
Yeah.
You know, you have to work hard, and you have to do you have to do things that you may not necessarily want to do in order to get to where you know.
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth.
Mm.
But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's all I can say as far as
Yeah.
that goes. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We have to, and we make do with what we have, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like to build on what you said there, I personally I don't think it's like the sad truth. It is the reality, and that's just life. You kind of have to do certain things that you don't want to do. Even when it comes to being a couple, you kind of have to make sacrifices that you're reluctant to make. That's just part of life. You don't get to say no to everything. And that's just the way it is, not just for music, but for everything else in life. And that's just how the way works. And I don't think, regardless of how times change, I think that's always going to be there. You have to kind of work on things. I mean, do things that you're not entirely pleased with in order to kind of keep the main thing going, if you get what I mean, whether it's the relationship or is it the band or the music. You kind of have to do other stuff that's not so fun. I mean,
Well,
like for
that's
some people, producing music is cool.
right.
Sorry?
Going on what you said about relationships and band is a relationship.
Yeah, it is. It
You
is.
know, no matter, how many you're in, that's a relationship each. You have to treat them accordingly. And I mean, someone very smart told me that, and it's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah, it is, because it is technically the same thing. You have to compromise, you have to deal with each other's flaws, you have to kind of, try to see the best in your bandmates like you would do in your partner. And that's pretty much the same thing, except it's like a fivesome or foursome, in a band. So it is
very true.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be a bit more positive with it, it's not actually the sad truth, but it is what reality actually is. And hopefully that doesn't scare people off, because I think a lot of musicians or a lot of people, regardless of what they do, they tend to kind of exit when things get a bit difficult. So especially for things like music, it's super easy to just say, screw it, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to find like a 9-to-5 job, and then I'm just going to stop playing music. And it's so easy to do that, because the reality is that it's so difficult to see the light when, half the time it's gloomy. I'm not saying that, being a musician I'm not saying it's all gloomy being a musician, but then it is not easy, and you do kind of need to find ways to make your way through in order to get to the point where, like you said, you want to be able to play shows and let your fans leave the venue happy with a smile on their face and maybe with like a bruise on their eye or something.
I think that we talk so much, not just like right now, but anytime that like I would have a conversation with anybody about being a musician, I think there's so many of the negative stuff that we bring up so often, more than the positive things. And that's kind of what, it just sometimes it makes it seem like it just gives itself off as if it's sad. It's not. It's the greatest job in the world, to me at least. And I would not change a single thing that I have done with music so far. And I'm still trucking away at it like everyone else, and people are going to get their opportunities to get themselves out there. And and I think it's so great when I see like my friends, people that have worked hard for what, where they have gotten, succeed and get to where they need to be, or at least on a starting point, getting their foot in the door. It's so great to see.
Yeah.
It's not all gloom. It's not all
of course.
Being a musician. We have so many things to bitch and complain about, but yet we have so many things to be so happy about.
Exactly. And when you choose to look at, the bright and sunny bits of being a musician, like that kind of makes you feel it's actually all worth it, and like any other thing in life, but in this case, music, when you actually see, you feel the outcome, you're like, screw it, everything was worth it, everything you had to go through. And you, given a choice, like you said, 10 years have gone by, and then you're still saying you wouldn't change a single thing about what happened, despite the fact that it wasn't easy, and that I feel would be so important for anyone who is aspiring to be a musician, because like we said early on, it's so easy to just give up when things get difficult.
Right. We'll joke around with people, and I'll get a message from a kid that will say like, hey man, I'm just starting my own band, and like, is there any tips or advice that you can give me? I'll joke around with him and I'll say, just don't do it. But really, that's cool. That's cool to me. I want to see more people get creative and start their own bands, and and get good at their, develop their love for the instrument, realize what, why they did it in the first place. I love seeing that. So like I said, I'll joke around with them and I'll say like, don't even bother, but really I love it. And I'll tell them like, no, I'm just saying, do it. Do it for the right reasons. Do it because you love it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whether or not it's gonna make you some money or something like that, no. Just do it because you love doing it.
Exactly. And that should be the primary focus, and then everything else comes second to that. I think that should kind of be the way. Yeah. Yeah. Well, now that you've mentioned kids, like one of the questions I wanted to ask, like, how do you feel like, like, because we live in a world now, especially with social media, that you literally have musicians spawning every single day. You get like 10 new phenomenal drummers every single day. And then like, whether you like it or not, you'll find a drummer that you didn't know about that plays so well all of a sudden, and
I just can't keep up.
so
Honestly.
yeah, you can't. You literally can't.
No.
So
I can't keep up on all the ones that pop up. I see lots of them every day, and but I love seeing that. I love seeing more pop up. I don't think of it as like, well, who's this guy? Oh, it's just more competition for me. If you think like that, you're an idiot. But
yeah.
I love seeing people. It goes back to what I said before. As long as you are doing it for the right reasons and you have a love for the instrument, I will do nothing but respect you for that.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic seeing like there's a Facebook group that I was added to. I try not to do those too much because I just don't really have much to say most of the time. But there is this one group on Facebook that I'm a part of called Metal. I think it's like Metal Drummer Nerds Worldwide or something like that. And I mean, there's thousands of kids in this group, and I can't keep up with all of them. I just see one after another pop up, and they're all great. They're all fantastic. Like they're all really good players. There's people that are just learning, and even ones that are just learning and have only had just a short time with the instrument, they're already getting good. And it's like, I love that. I love seeing that. I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more the merrier in this case. Like you said, whoever sees another fellow musician as a competition is, as a competitor, is a complete idiot, like you said. I think this is one of the scenarios where everyone should think the more the merrier, and obviously the more musicians out there, by default that also means more marketing for musicians in general, so people see music a bit more, they get exposed to music a bit more, because you can't do it all yourself. So yeah, so what do you think is the main difference, like 10 years ago versus, like, obviously you played drums more than 10 years ago, since more than 10 years ago. How do you think that has changed when you compare back then and today? Because today you get so many tutorials for free. You can literally self-teach. I mean, you could anyone could have been a self-taught musician back then, but it's even easier now with all this, everything that's going on.
I mean, that's exactly what I was. We didn't have all this stuff, like all these online workshops and stuff like that so much. At least I didn't know about it. You know, when I was just getting into the instrument, I was moving into a new house with my father, and I was in a completely new neighborhood, and I had to make friends. I was, you know, I think I was only maybe 10 or 11 years old at the time.
Mhm.
And I went outside to make some friends. There was these kids that lived, you know, on the same block. We were all together. And one of the houses was a friend of mine. His father used to play in a punk rock band from New Jersey back in the 80s.
Mhm.
And they had like the whole like setup down in the basement. They even had like lights, fog machines, and like all this shit that you didn't need, but they had it. They had it. They made it cool. They, you know, and that's when I first saw the drum kit, and I sat behind it. I started playing. I was horrible. My first beat, I think, was Nirvana, "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Everyone, you know, a lot of people that I know, they'd say the same thing. That was the first thing that they ever tried to play, and that's when I knew, like, I wanted to play drums. That seemed to be a little bit more realistic for me than being a pro skateboarder because I sucked at that. So, uh, so yeah, I mean, I asked for a drum kit, and I got the same exact one
Oh,
that they had,
nice.
and I kid you not, 5 to 6 hours a day in my basement playing the hell out of that drum kit. And that's how I taught myself, spending so much time
Okay.
learning. And that's how I got, you know, I got good. And when people didn't realize that, like, it was so funny to me when I was a kid and I was getting good at playing drums, and the people that had no idea that I was doing that saw me do it for the first time, and they're like, "Whoa!" From like, it was so awesome to see like the looks on their faces about that.
Especially at that
But
age, I think it's like you're like, yeah, now you know. You know?
so going from that and how I learned, and you know, being self-taught and stuff like that, to now, um, one, I feel older, obviously. So uh, you know, I feel like sometimes I'm like, holy, did I actually play that at that time? Like, why can't I play this now? You know, certain things I'm just like, you know, but I think it's just you condition yourself as you get older. You condition yourself to play either differently, or um, you find your niche, so to speak. What do you typically start playing the moment you sit down on a drum kit? That's the first thing that you'll ever notice. And going from back then to now, um, I mean, it's definitely been a journey. It's definitely been uh, a long one, for sure. And as I've said before, I would not change a single thing about it. And I'm so happy to feel like I belong with something. Because at that time, when you were young and stuff like that, you know, like your
Okay.
parents probably thought, oh, it's just a fad. He'll grow out of it in a minute. No, no, no. I'm tormenting the living hell out of my parents and my stepmother for a long time with this. Hell, I torment them now with the fact that I still do it after all these years. So it's it's nothing new. It's nothing new at this.
Well, poor parents, like all of our parents, I think when unless the parents were already heavy metal fans, I think most parents would think when their kids get in that heavy metal phase, I mean, it was the case with me as well, where my mom thought, nah, it's he's gonna get over this at some point. I'm like, yeah, no way. It was like 20 years later, I'm still like into like heavy stuff, and like it's a heavier stuff now, still
Right.
doing it, still loving it, yeah.
Well,
And I think that's kind of like the case for everyone.
that actually brings me to something that I feel like not a lot of people talk about too much. And I mean, it's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. And we still find our happiness in doing this. But if you have a set of parents that don't support this, they don't understand it, and they'll constantly give you a hard time on why you're doing that. You should be doing this with your life. But it's because they've grown up in a different time. They've grown up in a different time, and they'll never fully understand it. If there is anybody out there that feels as if their parents don't get it and that they're never going to understand why they do this and why they love it so much, you're not alone. Trust me, you're not alone in that whatsoever. Sorry, I had to get a little serious for just a second to say that, because like I said, I don't feel as if a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things that, we just kind of keep to ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we don't want it to get to like our pride.
Yeah.
I guess. You know what I mean?
That's very true. And that's just the reality, I guess, for a lot of people. I wanted like a music career. My mom stopped me. I mean, I am kind of thankful that my mom stopped me in a way. I mean, this might not be like the only option for other people, but in my case, I really wanted to get into music college to play drums, because I was playing drums before, and then the reality slapped me in the face. My mom said, you're not gonna. It's gonna be a difficult life being a musician. Why don't get? I mean, supportive in a way. Yeah, I mean, I was very upset then, but then the good thing was that she was supportive in a sense that she said you can still do what you want, but like at least have a backup plan in case things go south, which I think is fair. That's kind of fair, and so that was kind of the approach I took in the end. So studied something else, have my own career, and then what I'm doing now, like meeting musicians, playing music, and that's, I mean, at least I know I'm still able to do be involved with what I'm actually passionate about. So there are actually different approaches in terms of how we include music in our daily lives. I mean, whether be it a full-time thing or like a part-time thing, it really depends on which one you want more, and there's really no right or wrong to this. But like you said, it is very good that you brought up the point that where if anyone out there feels that their parents are not supportive, or their parents don't understand why they want to do this, they're definitely not alone, and that's reality. But then, I mean, we're all still standing here saying that it is actually possible. It's not impossible. If there's a will, there's a way.
Right. It depends on how hard you work.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, not just that, but how badly do you want it? I think that's
right.
That's even more important. So
that goes with anything. That goes with absolutely anything. It's no different. It's, for some strange reason, a lot of people seem to think of it as different than normal. And It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. You're working.
Yeah.
It's a job for you. Yeah, it may be a fun job, or people will be like, oh, well, you must be enjoying yourself going on vacation all the time for a month or 6 weeks or however long, and it's like, newsflash, it's not a vacation. It's my job. Like, that is my job. That is what I have to do. Do you think that it's easy to talk to a lot of people at a social gathering? For me, like, I wasn't the most social person. I'm really, sometimes it's still a bit overwhelming to me after the 2.5, 3 years that I've been with Oceano. Still overwhelming for me that people will go out of their way to talk to me or say kind words and stuff like that. Um, and in an actual social setting, sometimes your anxiety just kind of kicks off. That's a job in itself to have to deal
To
with.
deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that it's bad. It's not
Yeah,
that
that's
you
true.
talk to the people, but it's sometimes, like I said, that is a bit of work. That is a
Yeah.
bit of work. That's something you're teaching yourself to do. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I mean, you have that. You have constant driving. You have, uh, if you have a merch guy, like, you got to make sure that he or she is taken care of, and like, financial stuff with that, and then the if you're renting a van or a trailer, like, there's so many things that make it work that I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people, that they don't see it that way. They see it more of like, oh, you're just going out on the road and you're playing music and you're getting drunk every night. To your eyes, that's exactly what you see, but to us, no, no, not really. It's a little different.
Definitely. Yeah, I think
Mm.
behind the scenes is something that is very interesting that people should actually see. Like you said, people see the fun stuff, the all the glamour on stage, all the getting drunk after being on stage, but then it's the in between hours that people don't see.
I use that as an example, but it's a pretty good example because
Yeah,
that's constant.
yeah,
It's constant all the time. Because we could be really tired out and go out for the night and just be like, long day at work, go to the bar. Like, you know, wouldn't you do that if you had, let's say, a 40 hours a week job doing something, like actual manual labor, and you've had a long week? What would you do? Go home and just take a nap? I mean, yeah, honestly, that sounds a whole lot better, but I mean, the first thing I had a long day. I think I'm just gonna go down to the bar, have a beer, meet up with some friends, and that's gonna be the night. You
yeah,
know. So,
yeah. That's good
like,
for the soul. That's good for the soul. Not so good for the body, but then good for the soul.
great, great for sure.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. Like, thanks for sharing all that. I think, yeah, one of, like, as mentioned before, we started to chat. I mean, one of the reasons why I was so keen on doing this chat is because I think your journey as a musician will really inspire a lot of people, in the sense that whether I mean, musicians who are just about to start, or musicians that are just about to give up, or I think your journey will. I really hope that they listen to the full length of this whole interview, because we talk about how joyful it can be to be a musician, and
Mhm.
how much joy you find in doing this. But we also talk about the harsh reality, and how you're able to push through all these years to make it happen because you wanted it so bad, and there's nothing about it that you would change.
It's something that people need to hear. I don't see it often. I don't see it often where people will actually go out of their way to make a video, or you know, people will post on Facebook about it. But how far does that really go? You know, nobody openly talks about it and spreads it around.
Yeah.
And it's like this, there is a harsh reality.
Yeah.
Yes, we have, we have the greatest job in the world, but there is a harsh reality to it, whether we like it or not. There's a harsh reality to everything in this life.
Yeah.
And I hope that with talking about this, that people don't look at it like, oh, like he's just talking about a lot of the sad things. I don't want you to think that way. I want you to think about the good and the bad, because that is what's going to help condition you to be in this business.
Yeah.
And I'm nowhere near a peak. I'm nowhere near being someone who fully understands that. I'm not saying that I do and that I am that person. I've just seen a lot in the past years that, it really opens your eyes and opens your mind to a lot of things. And if people can take, one thing from this, most important of all, is to not give up. The upstarts, the people that have been doing this for a long period of time, the people who do this as a hobby, or whatever the case may be, don't give up. Don't give up on it. If you love it, do it. If you love anything, do it. I hope that it does influence some kids to pick up a drumstick or a guitar or a microphone and get out there and do it. Obviously, we can't do it right now because of all this stuff going on, but eventually we will. And I think that, going back to that, what I said before, I think that we're missing right now. We have a little bit of it. I see it with like my buddy with the GoFundMe for the road cruise and stuff like that. But we're missing a little bit of a sense of unity. And I think that after this is over, I think that we can really gain a bigger sense of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people who are aspiring to be musicians will find that really inspiring. I mean, to know about the reality, knowing about how to deal with, difficult times, and I think more importantly, to see, to be able to focus on the real goal, and to, persevere through, all those hardships that, will come their way, and I think that's very important. And I think that's why I really wanted to do this interview with you. And like all the other previous artists I spoke to, the point of all these interviews, or rather chats, is not to talk so much about gear, technical skills, and things like that. It's mainly to get up close and personal with you guys as artists, so then people actually see what's behind the curtains, rather than just talking about what's obvious. Oh, what style of play do you play most of the time? What technique do you use, and things like that. Those are things that people can actually pick up from by watching videos. And like what you said, it's a lot of things that we were talking about are not topics that people openly talk about it, like literally drag those curtains open and actually talk about it. And I think that's the main goal of doing all this interview. But having said that, we can't not talk about your technique because it's crazy. So I promise it's only gonna be one question, and it's gonna be the last one. And because drums, it's not something that you can practice any time of the day. Like, I mean, a guitar, you can be in your PJs, you can be naked or whatever. You can just pick up a guitar and you can practice it any time of the day without bothering anyone else. But but for drums, that's not actually the case, because regardless of what you do in terms of pad, I mean, you can have all the pads, you can have whether you try to cushion whatever, there will still be noise. So what do you think is the best way forward if someone aspires to play like Matt? What sort of advice would you give them if they had to struggle with school, with work, and they only have like limited amount of time to like actually get on the drums, but they do really want to get to the level that you're at, which is phenomenal. So what sort of advice would you give people in terms of practice and getting to your level?
You got to make the time. Simple as that. If you want it, you make the time. I mean, as I've told you, I would spend, when I was growing up, at least 5 hours a day in that basement. Nobody bothered me, surprisingly, for that long. I'm not saying that some people would have that luxury. I certainly don't have that anymore now that I'm older and have responsibilities and stuff like that. But, for the younger generation, if this is something that they want to do, just make time for it. Make time for it and really think about whether or not this is for you. And as far as, specifically on playing and technique, there are so many others like me out there. And I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? When I say that there's so many people like me out there, there's so many people that do the same stuff that I do, and we all kind of learn from each other by watching each other's videos and talking about certain things about technique and stuff like that. So it's like we're kind of one gigantic drummer, one gigantic drummer, in a sense. That's how I feel sometimes, because I go online and I'll see like a buddy of mine puts out a playthrough and does like the double stroke technique that I learned from somebody else, and it's just like, cool, keep going, get more people on this, and have them progress to where we can all just be absolutely insane at what we do. And that all comes with making time for it. You make time for it, you don't give up. Ask yourself if this is what you want. And with technique, practice, practice, practice. Anybody will tell you that. It's the truth. And just don't give up. Just don't give up, whatever you do.
And
I think that's the best way that I could really cap all this off as far as the practice goes.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point there. I think having no time is an excuse. And I mean, obviously, most of us have our responsibilities to attend to, and I think at the end of the day, it comes down to how badly you want it, and how badly you want to get good. And it's just like, regardless of how busy we get, we gotta eat. And no matter what we do or how busy we get, we find time to eat, because that's essential, you know. So it's the same with, you know, getting better at whatever we want to get better at. And it's just whether it's in most cases it's a matter of whether we are willing to make time for it or not, rather than whether we can or we cannot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very good point. So make time for what you love. Don't give up on what you love. So that's the big takeaway from today's chat. All right. So with that, I would really, I mean, that we are towards the end of our chat here today, and obviously, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I really hope that people find your words inspiring, because, like you said, a lot of people are in the similar situation as you are, and a lot of people are doing what you do. And let's hope that whoever's thinking of giving up will not give up after you know, listening to this. And let's just hope this goes on to inspire more people, regardless of age, out there to keep doing what they want to do. Okay, so thank you so much, Matt, and I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I did, and we will keep in touch.
I really did.
All
it's you know, it's nice to be able to talk, you know, once in a while. And I thank you for wanting to talk to me in the first place. You know, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. It really means a lot to me.
right.
Especially to be able to talk about the things that we did. You know, it really does mean a lot.
Right. I'm happy to hear that, and I'm privileged to be given that opportunity to talk to you as well. So okay, well, we'll see each other someday, and we'll continue to keep in touch and keep doing what you're doing, and people will absolutely love your word, those wise words that you were sharing for the past hour. So thank you once again, and let's talk soon. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely,
All right.
man.
Take care, man. Bye. Thanks so much.